As professional communicators, hopefully we all understand that it's really important to not just be able to do the presentation bit well, but to make sure that all elements of what we do look as good and feel as good as possible. We are projecting a brand, an image of how we want to be perceived by our audience. So if we look a mess, our audience are going to make assumptions about us. If our slideshows look super basic or homemade, that's going to tell a story about us as well. Not a good one. And so I wanted to continue the elements on visual storytelling. We've had a few episodes on this recently, one with Emily Schneider and again with John D'Amato, and want to continue that. Because one of the reasons why I decided to do another episode, particularly relating more to PowerPoint, was because my guest, Oreet Kaufman, has some really nice insights and ideas that relate to this about how we can be doing something she calls word dieting. So you definitely want to listen out for that. Now, I will say this. The audio quality is not the best for one of these, for one of my episodes. And I almost was in two minds about whether to publish it because of the audio issues. I think it's cleaned up enough that it still just about works, but hopefully you will be able to listen and hear everything that you need to hear. I tried to take out as much as possible of everything that wasn't coming through clearly, but there's only so much I can do. So please do bear with the audio issues. It will be worth it. You'll get some great value from listening to my guest today. Welcome to Present Influence, the show for professional communicators who want to inspire, impact, and influence. My name's John Ball. I am your guide on this journey to mastery level communication skills.
Let me officially welcome Oreet Kaufman to the Present Influence podcast. It's great to have you here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
I'm so delighted to speak to you. I really enjoyed our conversation when we had a little pre-interview chat a while back. And we recently had a friend of yours, Emily Schneider, on the show. And we want to say, we're going to have some other stuff to talk about, visual storytelling. I think we do. And so that's why I was very much looking forward to bringing you on, because you have some really nice stuff in your profile that hit something for me. I really like this. Things about cleaning up your communication clutter. Tell me a little bit about that and why that's a big thing for you.
Sure. John, first I'd say, I think it started from me just being an impatient person. So I don't know whether it's adult ADD or the fast social pace world we live in today, but I don't have a lot of patience. And so when I see a presentation slide, wherever I'm at a presentation and I see so much information on the slide, I think to myself, get to it, to the point. And I think we don't do that well enough in communications today. So while there's images and graphics that help tell the story, it's the message at the core that is really important. So when we think about that, your audience only has 3 to 5 seconds to look at your slide and get your message. Don't waste your audience's time. Don't waste their time and get to the point. So it is a skill. It does take practice to understand, to look at and say, what's repetitive? What's redundant? What is saying the same thing? Your bullets should really never be more than 2 lines at the most. So, it's taking a look at that and seeing how can we make it shorter, faster, and more efficient, but still engaging your audience and not wasting their time.
So there is a balance to be found here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me ask you, because this is interesting to me. We've all met those people who overshare or over-deliver on information. And is that what this is about, or is there other stuff going on here?
Yeah, I think a lot of times people write as they speak, and that's a different communication skill. So I used to do it as well. And it really took a lot of practice for me to learn how to cut in my own communications. So I think when people write as they speak, they don't understand what is the key message? What are those key words? And really going through and having your messaging to really say, what are those key words? What's the key messages? What do you want to leave your audience with that they're going to remember?
Do you ever get clients who come to you with a slideshow that they've already done and you look at it and go, oh my goodness, it sounds like you do. Where do you begin the journey with them?
So I did the permission from them to have the liberty to say, this is something that I'm really good at and I really enjoy, to be able to cut down your content. And with their permission, I will take a look and say, if it's a service that they're offering or if it's a product that they're offering, especially with services, I try to pull out those keywords. So if you're offering repair and diagnosis services, you just really need to say diagnosis and repair. You don't need to go through and explain. So when I get content from a client, I first of all try to understand what their goal is, what their design outcome is. What are you trying to say with the slide? What are you trying to say with the whole presentation? And then from there, I'm able to say, okay, you've got 3 lines in this bullet that really mean diagnosis and repair. So let's pull that out. And everything else, I'll also ask if it's going to be sent to a client or if it's going to be presented live to know if I can put it in speaker notes and say, just pull out diagnosis and repair and speak to the rest of it. Because all you want your clients to remember is the service you provide is diagnosis and repair.
Yeah. And I'm sure this isn't just your philosophy. There must be some sort of results you've seen from making these kinds of changes. So, what has been the kind of feedback that you've had from people when you have helped them to clean up the language that they use and make sure the communication is less cluttered?
Yeah, so I've got 2 different examples. One is from presentation design, is where I've taken a lot of stats and a lot of data, and I've said, okay, let's just pull that number out. And you have all this information on your slide, but you already told me on this at the top of the slide, the key data. So just pull that out. And the slide was crowded. The slide had 2 different charts on it. Again, all the information, but I found buried in there the key stats. I pulled it out. I highlighted just those numbers with 1 line underneath it. I highlighted the key fact. And the reaction was, it was just astonishment. It was, we didn't realize it was that simple. We didn't realize that's really how we need to communicate. Again, 3 to 5 seconds. Your audience is looking all over your slide. They have no idea where to look, what to do. Animation helps with that also. Recommend
Right.
animation sometimes with my clients to say, bring in little animation. I'm not a big fan of over animation, but animate appropriately to drive the message. So if you have 2 big statistics on your slide, then animate one at a time so you can drive the message and you can talk to that just like specifically. Another example I have is when I was working at a sales organization about 2 years ago, I was part of a meeting that was meant to write instructions for our sellers on how to read a report. It was an hour-long meeting. I'm not sure why exactly I was in that meeting, and the instructions were pretty good, except for the end. There were 4 bullet points, and each bullet started with the same word. And at the end, they said, "Reet, what would you suggest to add to these instructions?" And I said, first thing I would do is I would take out the first word of each of those bullets. It's repetitive. If there's action you want from the sellers, just start with that action one. They all start with the same word. Take that out, start with an action word, get to the point. These are sellers who don't have a lot of time. Get to the point with your action words and minimize the words as much as possible. So it's amazing what small changes can reflect our
Yeah.
communication and engagement and understanding and ultimately driving those results because that's what you want.
Absolutely. I could see where that might come from trying to do slides the way we speak. Like there is a sort of rhetorical technique when we're speaking of repeating the same kind of phrase to have
When
more impact. But I think if you have a whole slide series to slide, you wouldn't do that speaking, but definitely overdoing it. Is some of this a bit of, I don't say laziness, but a bit of maybe people's lack of confidence? Sometimes I've seen this as well, where people make the slideshow a bit of a crutch through their presentation. Is that kind of common as well?
Yeah, I think we've all seen people reading off slides, not just writing as they speak, but also reading directly off of that. And I can guarantee you, every person who has watched a PowerPoint presentation where they have read off the slides, you just want to roll off your seat. You just want
Mm,
to fall forward. So I think,
painful.
yes,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people you do definitely use it as a crutch. You are the show. As the speaker, you are the show. Your slides should support you and help you tell the story, but not be the story. You are the story. So it's understanding that balance between how much to put on the slide, again, between graphics and images and whatnot, and the messaging. It also takes practice. So if you're a speaker and you're now going to adopt this word dieting and you're going to put less words on the slide, let's take practice to become comfortable with your message so it doesn't become a crutch. You need to practice. You need to practice. If you have speaker notes, if you're doing it a keynote, there are large speakers. A lot of times there will be a teleprompter in front of you that will show you the speaker notes. So it becomes how to become comfortable with your message and you're comfortable talking so that the slides behind you are just sparks of information.
Yeah, they're complementary rather than dependent. I like that. I love that expression you have as well about word dieting. I'd heard it from you before and I thought, oh, I love that. It's such good IP for you to use that as well. But it's one of those things that really stands out. Are there some key principles that you operate by? I know you already shared a bit, but are there some more key principles you operate by that we could learn from? I would probably encourage people to work with a professional like you on slideshows because I think if you're wanting to stand out from the crowd, self-made slideshows can look very self-made. But what if we're going to do that? Maybe just someone starting out. What are some of the best practices that we could apply to word dieting and cleaning up our clutter?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say like everyone has a little bit of a teacher in them that loves to take out that proverbial red pen. I think we all enjoy a little bit of that. So I would say look at your own work take a step back and look at it as if somebody's bringing it to you and is asking you for your own feedback. What would you cut? And I would say look for repetition and look for redundancies. When we say redundancies, for example, one of the examples I have in my handout is next quarter results for Q2 are available online. Sounds short, right? But really, what do you say? Time-wise, it's Q2. You don't need to say next quarter results. Just say Q2. They're available online. You don't need the word available. If they're online, they were available. Another example I like to use is looking saying she drove in circles around the block. No, if she drove in circles, she drove around the block. If she drove around the block, she drove in circles. Look at your own work. See, okay, let's take a step back. What seems repetitive? And again, that takes practice. It takes practice. I don't know, John, if I can recommend an app, but there was an app that helps you work on.
Yeah,
Um,
please do.
it's called Elevate. It's for adults and for kids. And one of the features they have on there is brevity. So it will show you sentences like, she drove in circles around the block and will ask you to remove the words that are redundant. And at a very basic level, it's a fantastic exercise. It's fantastic. My son does it and he likes to challenge me on it. He'll say, okay, mommy, what would you put out from here? And I thrive on a challenge because it keeps my skills sharp and it
Yeah.
reminds me of other instances of brevity. So I highly recommend that and just practice because then you start to learn for yourself what's redundant, what's extra. Oh, and a lot of the times it's an aha moment. And to get better at, it's so empowering.
Like
I'm
anything, it takes practice. And
catch
but I really like that. I'm definitely going to try that out. I don't know how many redundancies I have in my general communication, but I'm keen to know. And I am someone who cares about cleaning up and being as clear in my communication as I can be. And I'll tell you, one of the one of the things that having been editing podcast interviews for a number of years now, I also feel like I've had the privilege to be able to pick up a lot of my own idiosyncrasies and redundancies in speaking. But also, I think I do far less of the ums and ahs that a lot of people do, and these filler words that
yeah.
really are unnecessary in a lot of how we speak. So this to me is a great opportunity to take that a step further and do a little more. Let me ask you a bit though about, are there other instances where people perhaps could use more imagery in, you mentioned animation, but could we use more imagery instead of perhaps where we may be trying to just put stuff in words sometimes, do a bit of visual storytelling?
Yeah, absolutely. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words, but don't just slap any picture on there and don't make it 1,000 words. So looking into curating the right kind of photos, I think to connect with your audience, a lot of times the imagery needs to evoke emotion. It needs to evoke a connection. Again, in today's technology world, we're all seeking for a connection. So
Right.
it should be imagery that is obviously appropriate to the topic and really minimal imagery as much like on each slide. You don't want to have competing images. Again, 3 to 5 seconds and what you want your audience to take away from it. What image are you trying to evoke and what feeling? So let's say think about that as well. So if you're a technology company, if you're an environmental company, choosing that right imagery to evoke not only a feeling and a connection, because I would say, no, I'm sorry, to evoke that feeling and emotion. And that's really a lot of what the core of what marketing is. Because good
Yeah.
presentation is good marketing. It's a good marketing tool. And when you see these billboards and you see these commercials, it's all about how it makes you feel. So I always tell my kids what the key in marketing is, the success in marketing is how you connect with somebody and how it makes you feel. So I think there's really an importance in choosing the right imagery for those reasons.
Yeah. Things that will stick in people's minds as well. They'll feel that, but they'll also remember it because it evoked
Right.
a feeling. So yeah, it can be magical stuff.
Yeah.
I will say that there are slide presentations I can remember. I certainly watched a lot of, we all did during COVID, right? A lot of Zoom meetings, and a lot of times people would use slides and stuff like that. There are some I still remember because they did it really well. And the most part, I don't. So the
Huh.
ones that do this well do really stand out and will stick in your memory. And sometimes because they had the visual storytelling, they even used a little bit of humor and things, that images that were really appropriate to what they were doing. Like it hadn't just been slapped
Sure.
together.
I would
And
say people don't remember the words on a sign. People can remember your images. Nobody walks away with saying, I really remember those words and how she made it so efficient. And but they're going to, that'll make them understand and resonate with them. But what they walk away with and what they're going to remember is that image on the screen really connected me with their message, really connected me with what their goal is and what it means for me.
yeah, look, I can so relate to pretty much everything you're saying. A lot of patience when people are over communicating or really struggling to get to the point and dancing around all of the houses before we get there. So things that are going to make things clearer for people, make you understood faster, connect the ideas with people quicker, and really just make a bigger impact, I would say, in what you're doing. That's all got to be good. And if you are a professional, or you want to come across as a professional in what you do, then you should be making sure that your visual representations, your tools, are
Yeah.
at that level as well. So I think what you do is super important. Can
And
I ask you? Yeah, go ahead.
I would say, John, I think it also establishes your credibility, right? It's
Yeah,
like
oh, yeah.
showing up, kind of like showing up as a speaker in a wrinkled suit. So your presentation could be great and you might have the greatest message, but if you show up in a wrinkled suit and that's all the people are going to remember. So besides your imagery and the visual storytelling, the clear, concise, and efficient messaging is what's going to establish your credibility, that you don't ramble on, that you don't read off the screen, that your slides are not crowded. You are clear, you are professional, you are confident. And that's really what presentation design is about in my mind, is giving you the confidence to get up there and speak about the topic that you're the expert on that topic. But this gives you the confidence to get up there, not only to impress your audiences, but also get the results you're looking for, whether it's to change behavior, whether it's to improve, not change knowledge, gain knowledge, change behavior, learn something new. But it really gives you that confidence and establishes your professionalism and your credibility. So it's because it's very clear, like with and without the presentation design, how you present yourself. That's really, like I said earlier, it's a marketing tool and how you want to put yourself out to the world, to your audience.
I like that. There's an area of presentation, visual presentation, where I maybe have been shifting my position on this, and I'll share it with you. I'll put it to you this way: a lot of the coaching I've done to help train speakers and help coach them to be better speakers, have better keynotes, I will nearly always will get asked about slideshows and like, should we use them? Should we have them? How many should we have? All that kind of thing. And my general answer has been that you should only really have them as a speaker if you're really going to need them, if your presentation requires them. Otherwise, it's one of those additional technical things that maybe you could do without. Like, you have to make sure everything's set up. Here's where I am maybe a bit more with it now. If your visual storytelling, if your slides are to the level that we're talking about here, that you've worked, especially if you've worked with someone like yourself, where you know you're going to have a high quality, expert looking presentation, I think that's only going to enhance what you do. And so it may look a bit different for different talks, but I do think you still probably want to be able to, if all the technical stuff blows up, but you still need to be able to figure out how you would deliver your talk without this. But that's maybe where I've shifted my position a little bit. Do you think pretty much any presentation could benefit from a good slideshow?
I think it depends on the kind of speaker that you are. So I think not all of us are dynamic, high energy, engaging speakers. If you're a
True.
keynote, even keynote speakers have some visual slides behind them. I think I'm going to assume the majority of us who are presenting are not high dynamic energy professional speakers. And I think you also have to account for the different types of learners in your audience. There are visual learners, there are auditory learners. And so even with the most engaging professional high energy speakers, a lot of people in the audience need to see along with you talking. And so there's, again, striking the balance between it's not a webinar type slides you're going to put up there as a keynote speaker. It's going to be quick visuals, like the TED Talks a little bit. Every TED Talk presentation is really just pictures and very few words. So those TED Talk speakers are phenomenal speakers, and they use very little visuals in the background to support their story. So I think to account for the different types of people in the audience, it's always good to have some type of visual. But again, as we said earlier, not to use it as a crutch.
Mm.
So I think like it can't hurt. I think it's always a good way to have.
I guess it must be different for every talk, but in general, is there an optimal level of slides to have? Let's say an average keynote presentation would be around 45 minutes. Now, how many slides would be too many? I guess is what I'm asking.
The fewer the better because we live in a world of slides and everybody knows the routine. Everybody knows what they might expect, what might be coming. We generally get guidelines around 2 minutes per slide to speak to. So I love to stay around 10 to 15, but I've had clients where for annual sales calls, it's over 100 slides because it's a 4 hour call and it breaks it up. And sometimes that's just what needs to happen. It's different departments submitting content and you just have those types of calls. But I always err on fewer than more because you should, especially for pitch decks, let's say, for example, it should really be no more than 15 slides. You need to get your message across, your problem, how you're solving it, your financing, and all the key elements of a pitch deck. But always tend to fewer than more. Don't create slides for the sake of creating slides. More slides don't make you look more intelligent. Better, smarter slides make you look more intelligent, and the way you use them will establish your professionalism and credibility again.
Do you feel that there is or should be a difference between perhaps how much we use slides in a live in-person presentation to perhaps a virtual meeting or Zoom call?
No,
Should be the
like,
same.
you should do the same. I think you should adapt it. I mean, you should be treated as if it's the same. If you're going to send me a PowerPoint to read on my own, I'm less engaged for sure than if you were to present it to me live. So I would say this, if you're going to be sending out a presentation afterwards or instead of presenting it live, make it as short as possible. Get it down to a 1 or 2 page summary because everybody is so busy and I don't want to read your 26-page PowerPoint deck that you just sent me in an email and you need feedback on by tomorrow. It's not going to happen. Generally, I would say stick to the same length of slides, whether it's presented live or not. But certainly, if you're going to send it out only or even afterwards, make an abbreviated version. Make it easy on everybody. Again, nobody has time.
Yeah, I like that. You may not have an answer, so I don't know, because this is more about delivery for online. But is there a best practice that you're aware of for slide presentations on online presentations? Is there like a best way to do it, or is it just cool to have it just pretty much take over the screen? And what you say is the best way to present a slide deck on an online presentation?
A lot of it is the same. I think you have to remember the audience is not sitting in front of you. So when you're doing it on a webinar, I think your engagement and the slides needs to be a little bit more than if it was live, actually, because people are on camera, they're off camera, they're multitasking, they're doing other things versus sitting live in an audience where you have more of a captive tension. I would say I think something else that people tend to do a lot is they over animate because again, people think it looks impressive. So especially in a webinar setting, I'm going to over animate and make it look fancy. And I'm going to put a lot of bullets on the screen when really it's understanding that we all heard it, that less is more. Animate appropriately to drive your message and so that you can drive the message. Animate for effect Don't over animate for the sake of animating. And I think in webinars and Zooms, a lot of people think because their audience is just sitting behind their computer, they're just gonna. I feel like it feels a little more permissive in that kind of setting to over animate. And I just get that reaction and that kind of gut feeling. People feel that permission to over animate and really don't.
Yeah. Look, my brain's going back to early days of PowerPoint, particularly when Keynote came out.
Yeah,
I can remember going to presentations and seeing the worst animations and
yeah.
transitions between slides as well, because it was all new and people were having fun playing with it, but they looked horrific.
Yeah, and it's really only like 3 or 4 animations that are effective. PowerPoint gets you so excited that there's so much you can do. And go out there and try all of them, but it's about knowing which ones are the most effective, they're most common. And there's a reason that they're the most common because they're minimal and they're effective. You think transitions between slides also. Oh, there's so much fun stuff you can do there. And my daughter, when she was in high school, was making a presentation and she played with all the transitions. And I was like, that's cool, but I have no idea what you're trying to say in the presentation because I'm so distracted by all the animations and transitions. So it's really about knowing your audience and really putting yourself in the audience's seat to say, is this something that you would want to sit through? It's fun to make. Is this
So
something that you want to
substance
sit through?
matters.
And again, 3 to 5 seconds. Don't distract your audience. Don't waste their time on ineffective transitions and animations. Use it effectively. Practice. Try out different ones, but then these ones that are subtle and then help drive the message.
You have brought me to another question, and I'm curious what your answer will be to this. As keynote speakers or workshop leaders or standard presentations that we may have, might there be times where we want to change the slideshow a little bit for going to perhaps different audiences?
Yeah, I think when we say know your audience is know who they are. Is it a corporate audience? Is it a technical audience? Is it an artistic audience? Is it an audience that usually works mostly with visuals? Who are you speaking to? One of my favorite clients to work with are engineers because they're very technical. But when it comes to communication and marketing in that sense, they just overload the slides. And so it's knowing who are you talking to and what do they need to know at that moment? What is the most important information? That's really for everybody. What do they need to know? Where do I find it? But the tone might need to change. The language you use might need to change based on the audience, certainly. You don't want to have a one slide, one presentation fits all, because that means, in my opinion, that you don't really care about your audience as much. You're just going to slap and paste the same presentation to everybody. And it might not be big changes, but it could be subtle changes in terms of, like I said, the wording that you use, the imagery that you use. It just deserves a review before you go to the next audience to see what needs to be different to resonate with this particular audience.
So I guess then that's an important part of the conversation for you to have with one of your clients. Who is or who are your
Yep.
audiences in general? Who is this mostly going to? Because if they're saying, "Oh, like I mostly speak to engineers and mechanics," and the like, it's going to be a little bit different to like I go to a lot of creatives, I go to big corporates or
Right.
whatever it
Right.
is.
The language
It
is
is going to
different.
matter. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think from a training experience, I learned how to really fine tune that communications to say what is the least amount of information they need to do their job versus corporate will want more explanations. Corporate will want more of the reasoning and the data behind it. Sellers will just, I used the example of parking lot training in my old organization is that I used to design the training mostly as a one pager as much as possible to say, which case scenario you are in the parking lot of a customer, what is the least amount of information you need to know to go and have that conversation with the customer to close that sale? So it is knowing what your audience needs, how they communicate with their customers, with their audiences as well.
Yeah. I really like your take on all of this, and I can see that the benefits of this level of clarity go far beyond just what you deliver on a slide deck into hopefully helping people to improve their general communication. I think it's always good to remove redundancies and clutter in our conversation and help people have more clarity. And to be honest, in particularly professional settings, time is money after all. You hear people saying that all the time. And yet, how much time gets wasted from people not being able to explain themselves or giving too much information. So I think what you're doing could be very impactful beyond just having an amazing slideshow. If someone's wanting to come and work with you, how could they find out more about you? How would you start that process thinking, all right, I want Oreet to help me get some clarity and have an amazing visual presentation?
Well, absolutely. So they can reach out through the website or through LinkedIn, and we'll have a conversation so I can understand the project and the scope of the project. Again, getting to the why, getting to the audience, understand the logistics and timing. And then once we start the process, then put together what's called a creative preview. So I'll send you 3 to 4 slides to make sure we're heading in the right direction, to make sure you get input from you if there's a type of presentation style that you like, if it's more modern or more traditional, whatever it might be, if there's something out there you've seen that you like. But that creative preview sets the foundation for our presentation. So that's your chance of the creative preview to say, and I tell my clients, please tell me honestly, because this is your project. Love it, hate it, change this, change that. And it might take 1 or 2 rounds of different creative directions to make sure that I'm producing something that you like. And then from there, we'll do draft reviews and finality. Projects typically take 2 to 3 weeks based on how fast the client responds with feedback. Some take longer based on, again, everybody's different timelines. It's really a quick and smooth process.
Fantastic. And you've created a helpful resource for the audience as well. Could tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so I created a resource that's on my site. It talks about how to hop back the redundancies and repetition we've been talking about. It's my word dieting tips. And it's 3 tips with examples that you can practice today and see the before and after of cutting out extra content. And so that is on my website. You can download it directly from the site. And it's really good start. It's a good starter tips. And certainly if you need help, let's connect and I can help you take it from there.
I'll certainly be making sure that the information for your website, how to get in contact with you, and for your word dieting tips is going to be in the show notes for anyone who wants to go and check that out. So do take a look at the show notes and go and visit Oreet's site and at least get yourself that helpful resource. Maybe find out how cool it would be to work with someone who's going to help you clean up your communication clutter and go on a word diet. That sounds like the kind of diet I could actually stick to. So I like that. Oreet.
Yeah.
Perfect. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. I love the sound of what you're doing. I'm so on board with it. And I'm so happy that your impatience led you to do something so cool and that you're helping lots of people have much better visual storytelling in their talks. We really appreciate you coming and being a guest on Present Influence. Thanks, Oreet.
Thank you so much, John. It was a pleasure.
I just wanted to close things off today and just say there's been a lot of exciting stuff happening. If you haven't already checked out my last episode, that is where you can see my very first ever attempt at open mic stand-up comedy, as well as my first ever speaker slam storytelling event. Some significant and important firsts for me over recent times, and I'm sharing them with you. There's going to be more. Please look forward to those. And I'm happy to say they went pretty well, but there's also plenty of room for growth and development. So I don't come here on this podcast as the perfect, I've got it all figured out, hey, look at me, aren't I great kind of person. I'm on this journey as well and sharing it with you. So I see this as being where we can grow and develop together. Whatever level you're at right now, just know there's always another level for growth and development for you and for me. And there should be. That's what we want. The day we stop growing and learning is the day that we start going in the other direction, and that's not good. We really want to think about that. But let's wrap things up there for today. And if you're not already subscribed to the show, please make sure that you do. And why not leave us a 5-star review? It always makes my day to see them, and it helps other people to know that this is a good quality podcast worth tuning into. It's been my pleasure speaking with you today, and I will look forward to seeing you on our next episode back on Friday. See you then. Take care.